Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 5th episode of Playground to Premiership, proudly sponsored by Puronic Water. Puronic Water is the water of champions in elite sport. It eradicates all impurities in your water while re-enhancing it with key minerals and electrolytes, while allowing you to eradicate single-use plastic. So if you're in elite sports or a family who's really conscious of your health, well-being and the environment, please click the link below to look in our bio of how Puronic can help you. Now, onto the main draw. Nathan Cantrill. Nathan's somebody who I met, I think it's about 7 or 8 years ago.
I think a bit longer.
Maybe a bit longer on the start of my journey. I'm not quite sure where you're on yours, but you're somebody I think we'd say we've gained a friendship. I think we've got mutual ground in lots of our ethos in football, and I've followed your journey with keen interest. So what I wanted to do is, obviously, in Playground to Premiership, you didn't play in the Premiership, Nathan, but you're now head of foundation, which is under 7 to under 12s, a Category 1 Premiership club in Nottingham Forest. So welcome. Thank you for coming to join us at Ace Academy, all the way from Nottingham. We always like to start, Nath, in terms of, you can see around you now, we've spoke for hours today, me and you, but everyone has a passion for football. Where did it start? So Nathan Cantrill from Mansfield, as a kid, where did your passion start and develop in football?
I'm from a council estate in Mansfield called Bellamy Road Council Estate, and playing on the top park, on top field. The garage is outside my grandparents' house. I can even remember snow. I've got a brilliant young memory of it snowing, so we were safe enough to slide and do diving headers and overhead kicks on the garages, which is all concrete area. So yeah, it was my love for football definitely came from around my grandparents' area where they lived and where I grew up.
And what time did you... We talked about it today, and we'll get into more depth as we go. What age did you start to develop into team? You can turn around now. The kids sat there with Dan. Very well sat, actually, 3 and 4 years of age. But when did you start to play organised football, your first team?
A lot older than this age group. So my first ever game was that I went to watch a friend's team, and they was definitely a struggling team. And I'd never played before. They were a year older than me, and they were shorter players. And they asked the other team, could we put this kid on? And the team was pretty poor, to be honest. So they weren't frightened in any way by any other kid playing for them, and they allowed me to play that day. And that was the start of it, really. I played the rest of that season with that age group that were a year older.
And what age would that be? 7s, 8s, 9s?
No, it was under 13s. I was really late start, under 13s.
And did you do other sports or just?
I was good at running. I loved sprinting and stuff like that. So I was I was very quick over short distances.
So from what we spoke about, you must have come on quickly, because I know obviously you didn't play professional, but you spoke to me about, obviously, at under 16, you were in Chesterfield.
Yeah.
You were the top scorer.
Yeah.
You were close to a scholar.
County,
so you didn't play till under 13?
13s. It was, so I would have been under 12.
Playing the Euro.
13s. So it definitely helped. I can remember I didn't score many goals because I've always played striker from starting. I didn't score many goals, but then the season after, there was a lad in our class at school, and he was going to play for a team called Derwent Rangers, it was at the time, and he asked me to go down there, and I went at my own age group, and it was really easy, if I'm honest. I found it really, really easy to go straight in there. And then by the end of that season half, I got asked to play for the best team in the local area, and then I was at Chesterfield and playing for district sides and stuff like that.
So it's quite interesting. We'll get into that a little bit. This is about your journey, but you feel like, you say, I always like sayings, strength is in the struggle, but maybe that struggle early on of playing a year up, when you come back down, you feel it benefited you?
Maybe, because it was a struggle, it was a challenge. I loved it. I was just going out and playing. It was play to me then. So these kids are now at 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s. To me, at under 12s, it felt like I was just going to play. Just going out with some of my local friends and just having a kick about, so to speak. And then the year after, when I played at my own age, it were a lot easier. Yeah, so I was very speed. I focused on speed and running in behind, so I was quick. So having I suppose 1v1 chasers against kids a year older that are taller, faster, I found it easier to use my speed the year after.
So what we speak about tips, was you athlete first, footballer second to start, or did you
definitely to start? I was definitely quicker than I was technical. But the crazy thing was, I used to go on the top field and I used to literally copy anyone off TV, and I was just ball skills. I used to practice faking the goalkeeper. So it was my mates in goal to do the R9, because R9 were my favourite player at the time.
Go around him.
Absolutely. So I used to always do that, try and dummy the goalkeeper or step over the goalkeeper. So that was not through coaching. That was not through the clubs that I played for. That was me on a local field practicing, 100%.
Yeah, it's quite. I think I mentioned you. There's a lad who was local. He did a lot of freestyle. I think he played a very good level. He does global soccer, I think, now, and he's doing his own podcast. But he did a thing about too much coaching, too much detail. He's got a real thing for street football. Sort of saying, if you look at a lot of the top players, they would have played in the street. What you've just sort of reminisced about is, I remember hearing the story about Wayne Rooney when he scored that fantastic goal against Arsenal on his debut. After the game, he went to wherever he lived in Liverpool and played in the garages with his mates.
Yeah.
He just scored in the Premier League.
Amazing.
But he referenced that a lot of his skills were learned being robust in the streets.
Do you know something as well? I mean, you're bringing some memories back now, because it's things I'd never thought of, but like the local Sunday League men's team from our estate, I used to go and play with them as well on a Sunday in the afternoon, especially in pre-season. I'd go to there was like a park called King George playing field where they used to train, and I used to go there. So I was playing with men at 13s and 14s. Even there was a local concrete five-a-side pitch, a different estate called Oak Tree Lane Estate. And they used to have a men's league there, and me and my friends, we used to actually like fake our ages so that we could go and play in that men's five-a-side league. So yeah, I suppose, I've never actually, I'm a coach myself, so I'm looking at everyone else's journey, but I suppose I never actually looked at my own journey and recognised that playing a year up, basically it was cage football on concrete then against grown men.
You watched the French documentary Concrete Football?
Yeah.
You must have watched it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Whereas you were doing it, I was thinking a lot of that.
I didn't quite reach the level of some of them
players. No, but it was really interesting, because I think, especially the stuff we've done, is like, there's no one set, you're right, I'm wrong. A lot of things are thought-provoking. A lot of things nowadays are done with good intentions. But it was thought-provoking for me, that I remember my original journey. I hope I haven't said it already on the podcast, is where I played at High Heath Park in Sheffield, which is not too far from here. It was like the younger ones played here and the older ones played there. We used to play on the green first. You'd end up in the street. We'd play Kirby. So it was 1v1, Wembley, whatever all those games were. We'd play on the tennis courts at school. But your badge of honour was, if the older lads were short on the park, they would call you over. Yeah. And it'd be like and I always remember saying to people, I don't think I learnt my skills, if I had any, in a structured manner. I think I learnt to guard, shield, manipulate the ball just through how I played. And like you've said, I used to remember watching Gazza as a kid, and how Gazza would try and charge through people, he'd drag and roll, and I'd go in the garden, and with my sort of slide thing, that was me. I was Gazza, whoever was in goal. So I think it's quite interesting, and we're going to get to your coaching journey now, about sort of structure, philosophy, what do you do? But I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of players. You talked about council estate, concrete football. There's plenty of footballers, whether they've been through academy or not, will reference that journey as key to their development, won't
definitely.
they?
Definitely.
So, coaching. Nathan Cantrill,
Yep.
head of 7s to 12s, Nottingham Forest. When did you realise, I said this to Adi Vivash, I think I said it to Mick, as much to Cookie. When did you realise you had a passion not just for football but for coaching and, as you say to me, developing?
My journey started because I'd got my 2 daughters living with me, and my youngest daughter, to help her with friendships and bonding and things like that at her school, she was really close to the boys. So I literally took my daughter and 2 of the boys out onto the park and just brought football with us. 2 of the boys were fantastic. I'm trying to think, Jacob and Bailey, 2 great little footballers. And went on the park and we were just playing, and I just thought, wow. And I said to them, do you play for a team? And they were like, no. And we literally set a grassroots team up for my daughter and her friends from the class. So all of the class and a couple of external players, they came and played. So it was something I fell into totally. I never expected it. I've been and watched my mates' teams and things like that and thought, that's a challenge, stuff like that. So it never happened. But from the first training session, I absolutely loved it. And if I'm honest, I know we're at the beginning of the podcast, I actually prefer coaching to ever play considerably. I prefer, if anyone gave me a choice to go back and play now or continue coaching, it would be coaching.
Okay, interesting. Why? Because of the value you find in your coaching?
Maybe the loves come from the connection with my daughter.
Yeah.
And then, wanting these local kids to do really well. But I think I've mentioned you before that I didn't have a dad. I didn't have a father figure. So I think helping other people, it's a massive passion. It's genuine. And, every session and every kid, it's from the art, if you know what I mean. I love the game and I absolutely love helping kids.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I said to Eddie Vivrash, referenced that a little bit in the podcast we did in terms of you're more than a coach. He's saying having empathy. He said a thing that was really resonant to me, that was to understand the player on the pitch, you must understand them off it. I think what you've just said there, and obviously you've said it, is I say to sometimes with the coaches that some of these kids, we don't know what happens off the field. We don't know what support network they've got, but some of them look for you more than just a football coach. And like you've said, if you've got that passion and you feel that you can aid that development of a child, look, I know your passion. It's why I've asked you to come onto this podcast. But yeah, look, if you find that value, I think it's probably why you've got yourself to where you've got you.
Well, it's massive, isn't it? Like you going out in it here later when you go on to training, you're a secondary attachment. You're a massive part of these kids' lives. And, like we say, some of these kids, they need this. They might have had a bad day at school or whatever, to come here and see when they see you, they're excited. I think, things like this are brilliant. And just, it's amazing.
No, fair play to you. So when you've seen that, you've started, what was the grassroots team called?
Well, this is from me. So I'm obsessed by Brazilian football, and my daughter is obsessed by the colour orange. So the team is called Santos Juniors.
Okay, no pressure.
No pressure, yeah. And we played in bright orange in the Dutch colours. Literally orange top, orange shorts, orange socks. So we stood out a mile.
So if you were playing on muddy grassy pitches, it was a mission.
Yeah, the parents weren't happy.
But I like that. There's always a why to something. I know you're studious of all different types of football. And then, so how far from that to when I meet you at Curva?
Not long after. So if I'm honest, I started coaching. Got with a good friend, Richard Walker. He coached previously with his older boy and his younger boy, Torres. We used to nickname him Torres. He was a bit of a goal scorer. Basically, the team we had, we took them inside. Yeah. So we didn't do all the sessions were indoor. The one thing I felt comfortable coaching, because I've never coached before, I was inexperienced, but the one thing I felt comfortable coaching was ball mastery. So literally at that time, I only knew a couple of other people that were really into futsal and things like that, but I bought some futsal balls. We went indoor and everything was about ball skills. That was all we coached for a year. There was no tactics, there was no boring drills. Everything was about the kids having balls and mastering the ball. That's all we did for a year, and I think that was because I felt comfortable coaching that. That was my comfort zone. And if I'm honest, the kids did really well and they developed really quickly.
So from that, you'd seen Curver as like a ball mastery style individual.
So I did the, I can't remember the name of the course now. It's like the futsal introduction course.
Right.
So I did that through the Notts FA. And then I did the Curver coaching course and the level 1 football. So they were my first 3 courses I did. So I did the level 1 so that I could coach.
Yeah.
But my passion instantly was about doing the futsal and the Curver coaching.
Right.
I was far more interested in them two than doing my level 2 at that time.
You've done a lot more courses than me. Now it's sort of gone in different paths, but I really enjoyed Curver. I thought Alf Gloughston, to doff my cap a little bit, we had one of the main guys do it.
Yeah, we were lucky, yeah.
I thought it was a really good course, not on all elements of football, but if you talk about 1v1 and ball mastery and kids sort of the skill element, I found it a real beneficial introduction to me for the young ages.
Yeah, definitely. It was, I think, players running like the transitional practices and stuff like that were really good. So for me, going from the player and the ball, then it's the player, the ball, and an opponent.
Yeah.
So it did take it to the next stage for me in what I could see and ideas for practices when we went back, definitely.
And then from there, so you did futsal as well, and just talk to us about your coaching journey from there until you moved into
Okay, so Mansfield Town, my local club, they gave me an opportunity, my first opportunity, for which I'll always be massively thankful for, in working in professional football. So they offered me the under 13, no, at the time it was the under 11s, and I was with them for a couple of years. So it was under 11s. And then after a season, they offered me a full-time position. So that was my first full-time position in football. So I worked with the development side in the day, the under 18s, coaching the first and second years in the morning and afternoon. But then they also wanted me to run the foundation phase as well. So at the time, Mansfield were Cat 4. So their 7s to 16s programme was all grassroots, and they played in the JPL. So I had a nice introduction to the role I'm currently in, unofficially, and not being actually a full academy at the time in the age groups I did, but I did run the foundation phase and I organised games and stuff like that.
We came and did a futsal tournament, and then the lads were the flag bearers.
That's right, yeah.
At the first team game, which was a lovely touch. I think that's probably around this time that
it was. So you brought your boys down, and we played a mini futsal tournament, and then all your boys came and did flag bearing at Mansfield Town,
Yeah, brilliant. Like Jude, who's not here tonight, it was about, you're right, it's about 8.
He was brilliant then. He was really, really, really good that day, actually. He was brilliant that day.
He's not here now.
Were they under 9s?
They'd probably be about under 8s, under 9s.
Yeah,
he was one of the ones who didn't go in and sign at Walsall, so he stayed.
That's right.
But me and you had started to do Curver, like you've just said, which is a shame it's not open anymore locally. We used to do a lot of futsal. I'd say I did futsal without fully understanding futsal at the time. So we just did fast-paced five-a-side, but it still had the benefits. Yeah. Santos Panthers used to come over, which was a renowned team from Northampton. You get the best of Birmingham, some are Notts. So the Pro Direct Arena, is it in Lazelle's, Birmingham, which was fantastic back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
So that's where we used to do
I'd argue that's the best.
I think Premier League used to use that.
They did, yeah. JPL used to use it as well. Yeah.
And obviously at one time, I'm not sure if it is still now, but futsal was really part of the curriculum for Category 1 clubs. When Riley was at Aston Villa, you did a lot of futsal. Yeah,
so we did a lot of futsal at Mansfield. The current head of coaching.
So before we just delve into it, because I want to do it, because we're hopefully going to get it moving. I did the futsal league 5 years ago when funding was around, and I thought we could develop it. We had a futsal league at certain ages, but for people who don't know, what in your expertise, what are the benefits of futsal, and what's the difference for futsal, Nath, versus football?
Well, the amount of touches for one. The ball doesn't go flying out and go flying down the field and waiting to get another ball. The ball's in play quickly. the 4-second rule. You've got to be faster. You've got to think quicker. There's far more touches. There's so much more problem solving in futsal. For example, the one rule that develops individual ball mastery and technique is that you can't pass back to the goalkeeper. So if the goalkeeper plays it out and you're marked high, you've got to escape. You've got to find a solution. So for me, the best thing with regards futsal to football is that you develop you're not developing, the game is developing it in the rules, and the surroundings and the environment is developing good problem solvers and decision makers.
Oh, great. It's because what you said there with the ball that flow, is it 20-30% heavier, isn't it? It's not...
If you hold the ball, it don't actually feel heavy. It's just the way...
when you strike it,
yeah,
doesn't it?
when you strike the ball, yeah. But if you were to hold two balls, it doesn't feel that much difference, in my opinion. But it's just a bounce. It sets. The ball drops, the ball sets in one bounce, and it's all about the ball mastery and the skills and the ball on the floor.
So for you, with, like, do you do it at Forest with young development? If it ideally can be done, do you think it's like dual benefits for kids to do futsal and football if they can?
100%. So at Forest, in our foundation phase, our 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s rotate every week. So once a week, the 9s or the 10s will go on a Monday, and on a Friday, the 11s or 12s will go. So they're getting a minimum 2 futsal sessions every single month. I've already explained my passion for the continental game and Brazilian football and things like that. And last season we had a internal 9s and 10s tournament where they played all season. We did videos and stuff like that we shared with them, and we had each team was either Santos, Corinthians, Palmeiras, Flamengo. But what we did was we mixed age groups as well, so it was 9s and 10s mixed, and we had a season-long tournament. At the end of the season, we booked St George's Park to play a finals day for it. We're looking to do that again this year. Our 8s, 7s...
Can I pass that idea off as my own?
Yeah.
I like that. We'll have to go with Argentinian teams, I think, with
definitely.
our connection
well,
here.
That's for later in the podcast.
Yeah.
We've got an Argentinian theme after Christmas.
Okay.
But no... the 7s and 8s, we had a Christmas Cup at futsal as well, an introduction to them. And, you know, with the programme we've got, I think with our external use of venues, we've got a brilliant programme and loads of variety, but futsal is a massive part of our programme.
Is it more gameplay scenario? Do you coach within futsal, or is it that problem solving of play the game, the game's the teacher?
Constraints within games. So the game of futsal's got constraints itself.
Yeah.
But we always do player and ball. So for the first 30 minutes of every single one of our sessions, it is ball mastery. Every player has a ball, and it is constant. It's their ball. It's their toy for the game, for the session. 30 minutes, every single futsal session, player and ball. So we've got a skills program at Forest as well. And what we do is we flip the skills based on the futsal technique. So if you're doing, for example, an outside up, you might drag it back on the outside, or a Cruyff turn might be a drag back, or an inside hook, it'll be with the sole of the foot inside and roll it inside. So our combination skills and our ball mastery practices, we actually slightly tweak it so that they're using a different part of the foot for futsal, so that over the week in our skills program, I think I've explained to you off air that we do 30 minutes ball mastery every session. When we go to futsal, that ball mastery practice that is the topic for the week it's got to be sole of the foot use. So that way what the players are doing is they're getting to use different parts of their foot all the time. It's not just your receive on the back foot to go forward, because if you do that at futsal, the ball's likely to go out of play because of the roll. So you have to receive it and move it in one movement with the sole of your foot in that movement to open up and play your next
Did
movement.
you keep, obviously, because futsal was a passion. Who did I meet at Tamworth the other day in New Year at the Helvecia?
Oh, yeah.
So did you keep futsal as part of your programmes? Because I've got here Scunthorpe, Doncaster. Have you always kept futsal at the forefront of your development of players?
When I was at Doncaster, Tony Cook, who got a lot of respect for, he basically asked me to come and run their first pre-academy programme. At the time I was starting at London Helvecia, so it wasn't something that I told him that I couldn't do it for long. However, he needed me to do it till the end of the season.
Just for the viewers, what's London Helvecia for people who don't understand futsal?
So London Helvecia in the National Futsal Series in England. At the time, they were the most successful futsal club, and they played in the Champions League at futsal. I think now we've had Bloomsbury, and I think Manchester. That's the top number one team at the minute. But at the time, London Helvecia were really strong, and I was very, very, very fortunate to be given the academy manager's job based in the Midlands for the futsal programme of a top club. So that came out of the blue, but that's been a brilliant part of my journey, and that has actually helped me, what I've been told since, get the role at Nottingham Forest on my CV. That was the tick on the box.
Oh, okay.
that was the tick. So basically, what they said, I've been told since by one of the people that hired me, that they said that was the thing that stood out. So when I went to Forest, I started as an age group coach, and then within a couple of weeks they asked me if I'd do the whole futsal for all of the age groups in the foundation phase. So yeah, my passion for futsal, I love futsal. I'm a football coach, and football is my number one, but futsal is a very close second.
Okay, so it's a good plug for me, because we're trying to get futsal relaunched within the pro.
Do it.
I think what's really interesting, because the kid's doing so much, and what's got me thinking, and what you've said is, like I've showed you today, and what we do, we've got, let's say, which is nice at the younger ages, we've got like 6 under-17s, 5 under-8s, 4 under-9s, 3, 4 under-10s, where what I'm looking at is maybe because of the workload of what everyone does, could we try and do what you guys do and say, look, once a month it's this, but you're not in your specific team, you're coming, playing in the league, because I do fully agree with you. What used to happen nice with the futsal league is it was only a bi-weekly thing. So if the kids are already doing 2-3 sessions, I do understand for the families maybe on a time constraint, a financial constraint, but I do believe, Jude always says to me, when you talk about problem solving, I don't want to keep dropping my lads' names, but Jude was a big strong boy. He's always adamant now, he's got this little sort of guard and drag in centre mid, he likes it to, he's adamant that he learned a lot of that through futsal. Taking the ball under pressure, problem solving. I remember the first time, now you say it, when he was at the back at futsal, he got stressed and under pressure because he kept having to problem solve. He had to, what did you say? They're not allowed to pass out, he's got to drive and dribble out.
The thing is,
he had a lot of problem solving.
If he come to the goalkeeper, got the ball off the goalkeeper, and he lost the ball, there's a good chance it's a goal. So you've got the extreme punishment for losing possession. The ultimate punishment is conceding a goal. You've got that every single time you get the ball off the keeper. If a team go man for man on you and mark you tight, you have to beat your man. There's no going back. You have to keep the ball and problem solve. And the best of it is, in the program we run at Forest, we have a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different environments, like cage football, things like that. And every single one offers a different challenge. So cage football, you can play off walls, which is brilliant. Futsal, you can't. The ball's different. The ball's heavier. There's loads of different scenarios, and I am quite proud that our external use, or the facilities that we use externally, are brilliant for developing our players in a different way. This is fantastic. But you imagine these kids in a futsal court dribbling and the ball not rolling away from them. They've got more touches of the ball. Perfect.
Okay, futsal, we've got to get moving.
Yep.
So bringing it up to speed, you've already spoke about a few bits, but now in terms of under-7s at Nottingham Forest, lots of our children, obviously it'll be the parents that listen in, and hopefully the coaches as well, talk to us about, so you see out here now, under-7s and under-8s and under-9s, we've got a few teams here. What's the week look like, Nath, for the players? How do they structure their week in terms of ball development, coaching, parent feedback? How do you do it
within our environment?
Yeah. How's it different to grassroots?
there's a huge, the parent education is one. So the parents are educated. We've just done a really brilliant presentation for a lot of the age groups on you versus you, rather me versus you and me versus them and me versus them, and what grades and scores have they got. It's about you versus you. Your journey in academy football is you versus you. There's no way that if you've got 15 brilliant players that play together and they're at Nottingham Forest, we've also got a first team, so no matter how good they are, you aren't going to get 15 players. In a perfect scenario, I would get all my players to go in there. In a realistic world, it won't happen. So the biggest thing is that we show the parents and teach the parents, and hopefully they'll share it with their children as well, that it's individual journey. Everything's an individual journey. So that's one of the things they get. They get guidance on that at 7s, 8s. We do it really young. So we have a lot of parent meetings, a lot of parent education. So for the parents, it's brilliant. For the children, equally so. So they'll even have nutrition. We'll talk about nutrition, food. We should drink, things like that. There you go, your water. But no, it's we do provide a lot of education for the children as well.
So what we speak about with your coaching, from what it sounds there, you look past the pitch as well as on the pitch. I want you to speak about the content on the pitch, but what we said is it's a journey for the parent. They've got to be part of it. Sometimes you have to look past the pitch in terms of how that's going to work for the child. So what you're sort of saying there is, because obviously you've got the time and maybe the revenue to do it and the expertise versus grassroots, the parents will get a more full support.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the player, obviously, at 7s and 8s, they're still in the pre-academy. They're not signed. How does the program?
We do. So we do class.
Do you take before 7s? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Do we take before 7s?
So obviously, there's a couple of elite clubs will take under 5s. I know Wolves locally would go at under 6s. Am I right in saying you go at under 7s?
We go under 7s from when the children start playing grassroots football for teams officially. That's when we start.
If other Cat 1s are taking 6s and some 5s, why don't you?
There's no right and wrong way. So a different club will do it one way to how we do it. But the way I see it is, how old are those out there?
4
and 5.
Yeah.
How could we scout a child at that age to come into our building? We can't. You can't scout children. They should be here. In my opinion, they should be here having fun. They should just be playing. They shouldn't see the big badge. And when they do see the big badge, it should be special. So if a kid comes in the building, they're 4 or 5 years old, they can't sign till under 9. So they've got 4 years before they even join the academy. So it's got to be special. They could be at the academy for, 10 years.
And if they stayed till they were under 16, like you say, it's a 12-year journey from there.
Yeah.
To where we know there's still a 67% chance at 16 to 21. So I love that. I know you said it before to me, wasn't it? About the badge meaning, something the badge being special, it being exciting. It's quite interesting. They're probably too young to understand or value that.
Yeah.
At like 4 or 5, but at 8, after a couple of years of football, or at least 7s. So you're right. There's no right or wrong answer. We've all got opinions on how we do it, but it's quite interesting. You're a Category 1 club, top club in the country, but you take them as soon as they start playing organised football.
Under 7s,
that's where you can look at them.
Yeah. So this year, for example, so we don't class it as a pre-academy. Most clubs do. So you're right in saying it, but we see it as part of the foundation phase. So the 7s and 8s, they'll be part of the programme that I'm fortunate to be in charge of. But the way we've done it this year is that from the start of the season, when grassroots league started, that's when we started.
Okay. And then obviously similar, your kids can sign, so when they're ready to start under 9s, which is 7v7 in grassroots, they can sign into the academy and be fully part of it, even though you see them at 7 as being part of the programme. In your experience, because you've done it at obviously grassroots level, Santos Juniors. Mansfield was Category 4, so it's a lot of grassroots. But now you're working week in, week out with 7 to 11-year-olds at a Category 1 academy. What's the key difference that you find?
Between the academies?
Between the academies and the players?
Movement.
Okay.
If you had say to me, go and watch a player, is he Cat whatever, or is he a grassroots player, or is he a Cat 1 player, it's the way they move. I genuinely believe that. The movement, we've got a fantastic program at the club, multi-sports, that's huge. So playing different sports, variety, engaging in other activities. It shouldn't all be football. Other activities. So, for example, we've done a multi-sports tournament at Nottingham Forest last season. That was 11s and 12s.
Did you get resistance to that?
To do multi-sports
but
tournament?
Like, say, coaches or players. Look, I'm lighting up because I'm happy to say I got it wrong. That 10 years ago at the start of my journey, I remember one of my really good players missing something to go to tennis, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, we're footballers. All I ever did was a kid at footballer, but I didn't move well enough. But technically, I'd mastered it, blah, blah, blah. And the reason I'm really smiling about what you're saying is I did a big thing. It was like a video to camera, you know, when you get a thought. And I said, you've got to master the ball to master the game. And somebody I've got huge respect for says, in the modern game, you've got to master your body. Like, it's one of the key things. Master the ball, yeah, but you've got to master your body as well. The people that play the best can move well.
Well, with a ball itself, the type of player that we're trying to produce at Nottingham Forest is hopefully the future Premier League player.
Right.
The player that can twist and turn and escape danger and problem solve, but can twist left and right. So our skills program is massive, and our whole program in the FP is about me and my ball. So twisting and turning left and right, playing left and right foot. So all this is balance and coordination based. So our performance program's huge, absolutely huge at Forest. So we do multi-sports every week. So we'll play different sports. We'll play basketball, we'll play tag rugby, all of these sports. I mean, even next week in the holidays, we've got a couple of our age groups going off site to play paddle. So they'll be doing that. Last season, our 11s and 12s played a multi-sports tournament, and that was brilliant. Sunderland were on board. So, like you say, did you get any resistance? I think the big thing is that you can collaborate and work with other clubs as well, but they've got to be like-minded, which Sunderland were.
That's brilliant. So the Sunderland one, don't forget to say that before I say what I was going to say. So with Sunderland, they're in a Category 1 academy to become the next Morgan Gibbs White with Nottingham Forest. But you're going to play against Sunderland, but you're flipping it. You're doing multi-sport and you're mixing up the teams.
So we did play football as well. So that was one of the sports. But we played basketball and rugby as well on the day. So there was what we also did for the social corner. What we did as well was we actually integrated. It was a bit of an idea that I had, and we didn't know how it'd go. But it's been brilliant, and we want to do more of it. But the idea was, what we don't want Forest versus Sunderland. We're thinking outside the box anyway, having multi-sport. We don't want Forest versus Sunderland. How would they feel about it, and how would our staff feel about it being mixed? So mixed 11s and 12s, but not only mixed age groups, mixed clubs as well. So we had loads and loads of teams. So, for example, in my team, I had a few Sunderland players, a few Forest players, and the other teams the same. So they were not only integrating and working with other players, but other coaches that they don't know as well. And they're playing sports that they're not used to. But I'll be honest, the day was fantastic, and we're definitely running one this season as well. So again, like the multi-sport stuff we do is part of the variety and part of the program we run. It's
great to hear. I mean, Pat, in terms of the other role I do with the water, I work very closely with a brilliant guy called Paddy Mortimer. I think you heard me speak to him today, but Paddy was Director of Sport at GB Snow Sport. He's worked at Leicester, Tigers, Chelsea. He integrated judo to Leicester Tigers many years ago and speak about the dual benefits of other sports in terms of the way you move, different coaching voices. I think the reason I asked you, and I loved about you sort of mixing things, is I spoke to you about that little thing, that session that I've maybe done a little bit too much, but I loved it, where it's rather than a 7v7, you chop your pitch into 3 pitches. It was a 4v4, a 2v2, a 1v1. It's problem solving for the kids. They decide who goes 1v1, 2v2, 4v4. But I've said it before here, when you've got like 3 coaches or 3 teams. I remember, we'll talk about books. Walls End boys, I think they are, where Shearer and Carrick were, that on a Friday night, didn't matter who you played for, it was Bibs night. So you get there, Bibs were down, and you could be with Joe and whoever, and you don't know them, work it out. You're playing that constraint of that game. And you talk about it now, working in chaos, problem solving, multi-sports, the way you move. I think it's just really refreshing to hear at your level. That I think the other key thing for me from watching, I've been on a parent journey as well as coaching for probably nearly 10 years, being in and around academy, and I got bored sometimes. As a parent, I got bored. So I used to think, if I'm bored, I think my lads might be bored of the same repetitive drills, actions. So it's really refreshing, I think, because ultimately, like you say, I'm not saying one of them will spin off and do another sport, etc. But you might unearth things. They'll enjoy it a bit more. It'll keep everything fresh.
I think the thing is, it's variety, but I've said this quite a lot, so people will be sick of me saying this, but it's variety, but it's not variety for the sake of having variety.
Right.
There's reasoning behind it. So the sports they choose, the movements in those sports.
So you will look into that to say they're mutually beneficial.
Absolutely.
To the football, to what we do, with the utmost respect. We're not going to do the table tennis because there's no...
Although we are doing paddle next week, but it's still movement. It's still twisting and turning and reacting, and then to be. So I would challenge, and I would say that table tennis.
No, I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
I'm saying what you'll do is whatever sport you pick. There'll
be reasoning behind it. Absolutely,
mutually beneficial to football.
But we even do that as well. We've got so obviously every club's got a syllabus and topics, but we've got some really exciting topics in our program, like street games. So we've actually got a street games topic. So that is basically the stuff that I was talking about at the beginning, which I'm really passionate about anyway, as you know. But we'll have little challenges, underloaded teams versus overloaded teams, mixed age group competitions. We'll have.
You're going to play on the concrete?
With that, maybe. I'm not. That one we haven't done yet. That one's to come.
I've seen that Malaga did it.
No. To be fair, a lot of our senior management team are very, very, very keen on us really, really, really exploring different surfaces and a lot of variety. So this season, if I'm honest, there's going to be a lot more exciting things.
I can't
talk about it, but there's a lot more exciting things coming. Yeah.
I'd said to every coach. So you've talked a little bit about the parent journey. So what you do is, they're part of the journey. You're giving them education. I talk. Sometimes it could be wrong that I call it as a parent trap. Do you have to balance parents' expectations versus it's not their journey, it's the child's journey? Academy for you, is it a big thing?
I would say it's in any what you would perceive as elite level, so the highest level sport. I would say that is in every sport. So I speak to people that are in that do jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and things like that. The parents can't help it. They get excited. They see the potential and get excited by that. I think that's understandable. So managing those expectations is a massive part of the journey. But we've got brilliant player care team and things like that. That again, the education, our psychologist at the club as well. So we've got an academy psychologist. All of these multidisciplinary teams, they do a lot of education for the parents around that.
So I don't forget, because I think I've asked pretty much every coach, what do you talked about technical in the modern day, which I want you to touch on. I don't want to forget in the modern day. And what do you see, or what do you look for in a player now?
Well, I think now, because of how the game has changed, for me, the one thing you have to have now to play at the top level. So when we was younger, if someone was technically brilliant, they stood out a mile. Whereas now these children are coming to places like this, getting one-to-one coaches. they're on YouTube videos, they are constantly practicing ball mastery. So the standard and level of technical ability in academy football has gone up massively since when we played. What I will say is that is a minimum requirement now to play at the highest level, in my opinion. And I think the difference between the top talents now comes probably down to the psychological side of the game. So your psychosocial and maybe your physical, because the game's getting quicker as well. So the technical ability has to be there. But I think the real top players that get to the end game are the ones that have mastered all four corners.
So for those, and I think we've spoke about it, you're talking about the 4-pillar model for the FA.
Yeah.
So technical, physical, psychological, social.
Yeah, psychosocial is very linked.
Okay, so you're sort of saying, and I think Mick referenced this, that the technical levels compared to back then, it's just so much higher. So how, in terms of what you look for though, you say you look, if you go out there now, we stop this podcast and you're like, I'm going to go and have a scout, there's 50, 60, 70 kids, you'll be looking for technical as a minimum.
Yeah.
What are the other things when they're out on the grass you're looking for?
So one of the things our programme is designed to encourage and improve and guide is the ball mastery technique on the ball, being able to twist and turn and find solutions.
Thing now. I was waiting that we're doing this podcast and the kids were getting coached in the dark. They put the floodlights. I was waiting for loads of comments to say, why are they coaching in the dark? Is that like development? Street games. The
street lights have gone out.
The street lights have come on now. So let's keep going. Sorry.
No, so the technical side's massive, and the ability to play on both sides as well. That's a huge one. So in our programme, if we're doing a lot of things about ball contact, so we've
Can you talk about your skills square? Don't forget that.
The skills. So it's not technically a skills square what we do at Forest. What it is we have a method of how we coach. So we'll do 10-minute practices. So that's based on the cognitive learning and the forgetting things and coming back and revisiting it and things like that. That's what we're working on massively in our programme. But what we do have at the end of it is a spacing gap. So we'll have a 10-minute practice, real high energetic, loads of ball contact practice, and then we'll have a spacing gap. So the spacing gap is a 5-minute practice in between the 10 minutes where they will do, we've got a really good ball mastery combination skills programme that our coaches are delivering weekly, which changes weekly. So in our sessions, hour and a half sessions, we will have 6 10-minute practices, and we will have, is it 6 10 minutes? Yeah, I'm terrible at maths. 6 10 minutes and 6 5-minute practices on in our spacing practices. In those practices, that's where it is all player and ball. And again, like I keep saying, our programme is love the ball, so we need to make sure that our players are constantly on the ball.
And I got it horribly wrong when you talk about maths, trying to guesstimate how many touches people had, but you're actually even analysing the amount of purposeful touches players are having.
Yeah, so the way we see it, there's, for example, you look at games. If you're an under a 9 and under 10, and they're playing 7, 8, 9 aside on massive pitches, they're going to get less touches than they will if they're playing 3 aside and 5 aside. So at our club, in our games programme, we always play smaller formats because we want our players to have the ball. If you're not touching the ball, you're not getting comfortable with the ball. So our players, not only in our technical programme in the week, they're also getting it in the games programme at the weekend as well. So the touches is massive. So we have measured the amount of touches that they will get at cage football, 3v3, at 5v5, at futsal, at 7v7. There was a considerable difference, but we've also now started measuring amount of ball contact in training sessions as well over the hour and a half. So our analysts are filming a single player and measuring the touches of that one player during a session. Purposefully, the coaches aren't told who the player is, so it'd be easy. So it'd be easy for you to say to me, I'm going to be coaching. Nath, you're going to be coaching him today. We're going to film you. I just give that one kid the ball. In this way, it's developing not only our players' skills and techniques and time on the ball and ball mastery and contact and loving the ball. It's also developing our coaches' ability to recognise every single player needs the same amount of care at all times. So we are measuring that. We're feeding it back to the coaches. We're looking at which topics get the most ball contact out of the players as well, and which ones maybe at the end of the season we think there was far less ball contact in that session, so we might need to change that topic as well. But it's a massive program, massive piece of work, and like I say, our focus is loving the ball, having the ball. Without that, you cannot develop.
And did you it leads me on, because it's great, I was really interested today to learn about your summer holidays, I'm going to call it. I want your summer holidays, all the different places you've been. So you visited Napoli. I'm going to say Salernitana. I'm going to say
Salernitana, yeah.
Salernitana, Bruges,
yeah,
and the Hungarian FA.
Yeah.
You've had the
Seville.
So you've had the opportunity or the privilege, I think you said,
Very
which is
much,
a great word for it. What was the key differences? What are things you brought back?
Well, the first thing I will say is that we've had our new technical academy director has come from Glasgow Rangers, and they were part of the ECA, the European Clubs Association, which Forest are now members of. So we're very, very, very lucky as academy staff that now, as part of that the ECA host events across the season, and clubs are invited to send academy staff to attend these events. So there's a number of us have attended events over the season, and even as far as our girls' programs, we've got a brilliant women's program now. The women's academy manager and women's academy director, they've just been to Lyon as well, for example. So they've studied Lyon, which is a brilliant women's academy and a women's team. So it's not just the men's team that are getting as well. The women's team are getting these opportunities as well, and it's very much one club. So I know I've gone off a little bit there, but I thought it was important because we are trying to bring everything together and become more of a European club as opposed to just an English club. So with regards to the trips, I took something from every club, and our club want us to bring some back. So we don't just go on the trip and go to Seville and have tapas. We literally go to Seville and bring something back. So I had to do a presentation to our club on what I learned there. So we have a weekly quick meeting, it's called, and on a Thursday, and all the staff are invited into it, and we have a different presenter each week. So it might be a different discipline, it might be coaching, so I would present on Seville, it might be medical, it might be talent ID or things like that. So it is important we bring something back. So from Seville, my biggest takeaway was that they don't do dribbling, so it's a complete opposite to what we do. However, what I thought was brilliant was they had a process that they all believed in. They all believed in their way, which is a very Spanish way, and you see it when you watch Spain. You see the Seville way. No, you see it. So everything was around receiving the ball, releasing the ball, movement off the ball, lots of passing practices. Even to the point where at the end of the visit, they said to us, would you like to go and watch anywhere? Well, where would you like to go in the academy? You can go and watch everything. 90% of the people went straight to the PDP, the older age groups. I went straight down to the little ones to watch what they were doing there. And I was fortunate enough that the cameraman there said, would you like me to translate and ask some questions to the coaches? So I almost had a one-to-one with the Seville coaches. And I said, do you do any dribbling? And their words were, no. We're not like the English players. The English players are stronger, can hold people off and get into duels. We try and move the ball without getting into duels and contact. So our program is purely around the technical side, the receiving and releasing program. And they said that the only bit of dribbling that they actually did was the arrival. When they come, they had 2 many goals, did a bit of dribbling, and then it was all passing. So you could say that's totally against everything that I do, and definitely against the way Forest think. But however, what I did like was that the coaches all really, really, really bought into it. And if you looked around the academy, there was an identity.
There's an identity.
There's an identity, and that's, our identity at Forest is the complete flip of that. But I do love to see a club with an identity that they live by.
And the other visits quickly, so Club Bruges and the Hungarian FA is an interesting one.
Yeah, so Club Bruges, that was fascinating. I got an insight into everything. It was an open door. They literally showed me like everything they got. One of the real standout things was their recruitment program. That was really unique, and it was unlike in England where you've got the 1 hour rule for the young ages. They could go anywhere, so there was people being drove in. They had different centres all around the country.
Right.
So it was a national recruitment program, and that was really, really fascinating. But no, the Hungarian FA, that came off the back of the Seville visit. So right. I got a random email that I didn't expect from members of the Hungarian FA, the Centre for Football Methodology, and basically they said we met in Seville, and you was talking about the junior program, and they invited me to present at the Puskas Arena, which was amazing. I met some amazing people there. It was fantastic. So for me, it ticked all the boxes. I got to visit.
Because you said they start later in Hungary.
So what they said was that the reason that I'd been invited was because they don't have a younger program in Hungary. They start a lot later, and they feel that they may need to bring that into their academy program and start younger. So it was really interesting. Some of the questions I got there at the end, and people coming and pulling me to one side from clubs and stuff like that. That was really interesting, but really exciting as well.
So a couple of points that you said there that was really good, because a lot of people, you're looking forward to the future. You talked about methodology. How do you see the future of football in the young ages? You've spoke on cage football, futsal. How do you see it in the next few years?
I'll go to the end game first.
Go
so
on.
the end game is that so our academy directors, the one thing they said on the first presentation, which really resonates with me, and it's something that I always say, so I'm going to use it now, is that in the Premier League we've got the world's best coaches, and the first thing the world's best coaches do out of possession is they make the pitch tight and small. So you have to be able to manipulate the ball in tight spaces. Right. So our programme is linked to what we see as the Premier League in 10 years' time, and it's tight spaces, finding solutions and mastering that one moment when you get an opportunity to score. You can't have that without what we believe is the small formats, the individual ball mastery, and the isolated skills practices and learning technique. Without that we've got in our programme, it'll be almost impossible to be master the game in 10 years' time, because it is getting smaller. You watch a game now, you watch any game now, the top teams, the first thing they do when opposition's got the ball centrally is they go bang. Tight, two lines, they can't get through them lines, we don't play through there, force them around the outside, but the goal's in the centre. So how do you get through there?
Okay. Brilliant. And lastly, like we normally do teams, but we're not going to do it. I think you give us some brilliant content today, Nathan. I think really thought-provoking for me as a coach, me as a parent. You're a bit of you love your books, don't you, in terms of football, like me. So I said to you, one of the things we did in lockdown is exchanged all the time, sort of books. I want you, a coach, so we got loads of coaches, couple of books that you'd recommend for coaches, and maybe at least one for parents that would help their child develop. Putting you under pressure here.
For coaches, The Playmaker's Advantage. Okay. I love that book. That is about the mindset of a playmaker, how you coach the player that doesn't think like everyone else. That's a fascinating book. It's around the psychology of a playmaker. That's fantastic. If you're working at any level, because you've got your rogue players. Even if you look on here, every single team will have that rogue player. How do you manage that?
The game changer.
Yeah.
They'll frustrate you.
Yeah. The player that will frustrate you, get the ball, take the whole team on.
Who's the lad for QPR, Tarabat? Like Warnock learned how to... I'm using him as an example, but Adi Viver, I can't remember the words he used, but he said that they think differently, they'll play differently. But okay, so the future playmaker.
Yeah, The Playmaker's Advantage.
Sorry, The Playmaker's Advantage.
Yeah, read that book, definitely. I'm trying to think for one for parents.
What was the book you got me to read about different European academies for
The
people?
European Game.
That was really good, I thought.
The European Game's fantastic, and I've been lucky enough that I've visited some clubs and things like that, and learning about what others do is massive. So like I say, I'm a student of the game. You never learn everything. You'll never learn everything. The game will change. The game in a different country will change. So you have to be constantly educating yourself. So if you can't visit the clubs, definitely read as many books as you can about other clubs. So
not just the Frank Lampard series, or the bit. So the kids getting old enough. Anything for the kids that you've seen that's resonant to read?
If I'm honest, it's about me. Most of the books I read are about me developing players and talent ID and things like that. But what I would say to any players is read books about players that have struggled and found challenges, not just the best players. You read about some top talents that didn't make it and didn't get through. Yeah. So have a variety of read about a variety of experiences, because that's real life. You might get an injury that might mean that you end up on here coaching instead. So I think reading about different players' journeys and in different sports, in different environments, lots of variety, not just how Erling Haaland became who he is today. I've read that book. That's a decent book, to be fair. But don't just read about Erling Haaland. Read about the player that should have been as well. Yeah. Players like that.
Do you know what, Nate? You didn't mention, 8 years ago, and I beat you in that penalty strike challenge.
What I still wake up in the night. You absolutely
with that
hammered me
Adidas
on
ball
that
had the speed in it.
Yeah, you did.
But we met
I fancied my chances as well, so I was a bit disappointed.
We were a couple of them busy coaches, I think, and our journeys have crossed. We've kept in touch. For me, I just want to say it's been brilliant to see how you've progressed in football, and see you have such a pivotal role now in a club, and have like the passion, which I think bounces off the page, if I do a pun for a book. It's brilliant to see, and I think obviously you're going to have a lot more years in football. But thank you so much for coming all the way to Rushall for our 5th episode. I think parents, I always say with the podcasts, I hope that people will take some things away from it, and I think there's so much that you've spoke about today in terms of on the pitch and off the pitch, that coaches, players, parents will be able to take away. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, mate.
Make sure I'm on one of these next tours with you. Is that okay? And we look forward as Ace to hopefully coming across and seeing you all at Nottingham Forest very soon.
100%.
Thank you so much, Nathan.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.
Top man.